And now for our next news special report.
A tempest brews over Gaza, its thunderous roar reverberating through the anxious hearts of millions. As leaflets fall like harbingers of doom and civilians wrestle with an unthinkable ultimatum, the specter of devastation unfurls its ghastly visage over the embattled region. Blood once spilled writes a permanent script in the annals of history, one that cannot be unwritten, even as the echo of ancient prophecies murmurs ominously in the undertones of the present conflict. The ghost of impending humanitarian catastrophe looms large, and yet amidst the ruins, a single question pierces through the impending gloom. Can the cycle be broken, or is the world barreling towards a cataclysm of prophetic proportions? Stay with us through this special report, because you do not want to miss our final thought. Amidst an electrifying and profoundly concerning situation in Gaza, the prevailing threat of a new Middle East conflict has cast an ominous shadow across the international community. An ultimatum from Israel, delineating a mere 24-hour window for the evacuation of 1.1 million Palestinian civilians from North Gaza, is arguably propelling the already teetering region towards an abyss of potential calamity. This alarming development has been met with grave warnings from the United Nations, which anticipates a resultant calamitous situation. A visibly daunting scene as leaflets in Arabic cascade over Gaza City inscribed with the stark Israeli directive for civilians to evacuate south for your own safety, in view of Hamas militants reportedly taking refuge within the city. Take a look. There it is. You can see the leaflets falling from the sky. Look at them all. Unbelievable. Israeli Defense Forces have embarked on a sizable military accumulation in the country's south, mobilizing approximately 300,000 reservists and priming themselves for what is largely presumed to be a major forthcoming ground assault. This military activity comes amidst an urgent plea from the IDF to the Gaza City populace to displace themselves southwards to areas below Wadi Gaza, signaling a harbinger of extensive military actions in the near future. The disconcerting panorama of mass movement from Gaza City to the south, driven by the exigent Israeli warnings, offers a tangible glimpse into the impending humanitarian crisis. Take a look. Wow, those people were flying. Astonishingly, the IDF contends that Hamas, which has positioned itself adamantly against the Israeli propaganda campaign and its ensuing psychological war, is obstructing civilian evacuation efforts. The armed group has explicitly encouraged Palestinians to remain in their homes, endeavoring to foster resistance against the Israeli campaign and its undertones of psychological warfare. Moreover, the United Nations has imparted urgent appeals to Israel, urging the nation to retract its evacuation order for Gazans. A spokesperson situated in New York emphasized that the northern segment of Gaza is home to 1.1 million individuals, roughly equal to half of the Strip's overall population, further accentuating the critical need for Israel to reconsider its course of action to avert unmitigated humanitarian disaster. Notwithstanding these staggering fatalities and wounds already endured, with over 1,500 Palestinians deceased and upwards of 6,600 wounded and a minimum of 400,000 Gazans displaced, the trajectory towards an increasingly catastrophic humanitarian debacle is starkly apparent. Amid the ascending turbulence, Iran's foreign minister Hossein Amir Abdollahian conducted a meeting with Hezbollah Secretary General Hassan Nasrallah, positioning the ongoing hostilities with Israel at the forefront of their discussion. In a rare disclosure of interaction between significant leaders, a photograph surfaces displaying Hassan Nasrallah and Hassan Amir Abdullahian engrossed in deep discussion showcasing an alignment of interests and likely strategies against Israel amidst the Gaza crisis. Amir Abdullahian articulated a vehement declaration from Beirut emphasizing that the global community and Islamic nations can ill afford to remain passive in the face of persistent Israeli-perpetuated war crimes against the Palestinian populace. He also delineated a potential strategic shift, highlighting that if the brutality against the Gaza population and occupied West Bank endures, the unveiling of a new front against Israel could materialize. This intimation suggests the potential coalescence of multiple resistance currents against Israel should the humanitarian blockade and war crimes against Gaza and Palestine persist. Continuing to cascade in parallel with these developments, critiques of Israel's policies have percolated prominently into international discourse, with numerous critics suggesting the nation's actions could herald the commencement of a calculated mass displacement of Palestinians, potentially evolving into an ethnic cleansing campaign. These are the terms that they're using. Contrastingly, the IDF rebuts, asserting that Hamas is manipulating Gazans as human shields, thereby introducing an additional layer of complexity and contention to an already incendiary situation. Moreover, additional geopolitical intricacies unfold as Amir Abdullahian traveled to Iraq on Thursday and is scheduled to visit Damascus on Friday following the recent Israeli airstrike that incapacitated airports in Damascus and Aleppo. In a notably rare occurrence, footage emerges depicting Israel's Thursday airstrike on Damascus International Airport, signifying a tangible demonstration of the escalating aggression and military activity within the region. Watch. With Damascus and Aleppo airports being incapacitated by Israeli jets, presumably curbing arms shipments from Iran, and Israeli shelling observed in South Lebanon, the physical manifestation of the geopolitical tensions becomes increasingly unbridled. Concurrently, IDF has enacted strikes against 2,687 targets throughout the Gaza Strip, further amplifying the humanitarian crisis permeating the region. Prominent targets, such as the Islamic University of Gaza, have been obliterated under the justification of nullifying Hamas militaristic capacities and infrastructure. The Islamic University of Gaza, once a bustling center of learning and activity, now lies in ruins, an emblematic testament to the extensive and overwhelming destruction unfurling throughout the region. Watch. This is the footage here of the alleged terror facility, training ground, the university being destroyed. There is no holding back. In a terrain embroiled with ancient prophecies and modern weaponry, even the cobblestone streets might whisper of Isaiah's forewarnings as Israeli strikes threaten Damascus. In the northern front, Hezbollah, far from being mere observers, are ostensibly poised and prepared to plunge into the tumult. Should they intervene, the potential for an expansive multinational conflict becomes markedly amplified. As the number of displaced Gazans grows and regional players amass their influence and military might, the biblical prophecies echoed in the potential destruction of Damascus beckons reflections of historical, prophetic narratives playing out in contemporary politics. The U.S. naval forces linger ominously, ready to back Israel if the conflict magnifies, intertwining modern-day political machinations with ancient prophecies and religious narratives. As the IDF launches a formidable offensive, and with other nations like Iran and the U.S. possibly entering the fray, the Gaza conflict isn't isolated. It's a precarious tipping point, potentially spiraling into a wider regional conflict where the chessboard extends far beyond the immediate players, embedded itself into the global context. The international community now waits with bated breath as the events unfold, influencing not just the immediate area, but resonating on a global scale, impacting international relations and stirring a potentially vast refugee crisis. Concurrently, within the specific interpretations of Christian eschatology, particularly among some evangelical Christians, the prospect of a final apocalyptic conflict in Israel heralds a sequence of end-time events encompassing the second coming of Christ. Meanwhile, particular segments of Jewish eschatological thought envision a final redemptive war referred to as the War of Gog and Magog, which is prophesied to transpire in the Israeli realm. In the context of the present Gaza situation, these underpinnings may exacerbate tensions and conflict propensities by lending a transcendental, divinely ordained veneer to the geopolitical and military confrontations at hand. The confluence of political, religious, and social factors entwined with these prophetic beliefs may serve to entrench and escalate the conflict, potentially catalyzing broader regional involvement under the banner of fulfilling divine prophecy. With the current Gaza crisis as a backdrop, the utilization or invocation of these prophetic narratives may serve to mobilize, legitimize, and intensify combative efforts on all sides. This incorporation of religious and prophetic dimensions within the conflict can significantly impact not only the immediate actors involved, but also potentially draw in other nations and groups who perceive the unfolding events as consonant with their own anticipations eschatologically and their own imperatives. The issue becomes markedly critical when considering the broader implications for international peace and stability. If various factions and nations perceive the conflict not merely as a geopolitical dispute, but as a pivotal episode within a divinely ordained eschatological timetable, the potential for de-escalation becomes notably constrained. Negotiations and peace-building efforts become particularly challenging when the perceived stakes are not only territorial, political, and humanitarian, but also encompass eternal, divine ramifications. By discerning the profound intertwining of prophetic, political, and social narratives within the Gaza crisis, the international community can better navigate the precarious pathways towards potential resolution and peace, acutely aware of the multifaceted dimensions that infuse the conflict with its particularly potent and volatile character. In essence, the Gaza Strip stands on the brink, teetering on the edge of a comprehensive and potentially irreversible humanitarian and geopolitical catastrophe. The decisions made in the coming days and hours, and even weeks, will not only decide the fate of millions of civilians, but may shape the geopolitical landscape of the Middle East for decades to come. Herein lies the cautionary tale of Gaza, an intimate tragedy on a global stage, where ancient prophecies and modern-day destruction entwine in a deadly dance of politics and peril. An explosive concoction of divinely driven narratives and geopolitical machinations, the situation defies simple resolution, teetering between the immense weight of historical prophecy and the urgency of imminent human suffering. It is in this cauldron of crisis, where faith and fear collide, that global leaders must tread with unerring caution, navigating not only the tangible atrocities, but also the indomitable spirit of beliefs woven into the very fabric of conflict. As we stare into the abyss of potential catastrophe, the interplay of earthly and spiritual consequences asks of us not just political acumen, but the profoundly delicate, compassionate touch underscoring that echoes now in the echo chambers of eternity. And so the world watches, waits, and prays as the sands of time slip exorbitantly through our collective fingers, carving a path of destiny with each grain that falls.
Congratulations, you made it to the end of the video. Now keep up your quest for truth with this next news report. And if you found our channel enlightening, join the millions who agree with you. Tap subscribe. Thank you for watching the Next News Network.